All right, this is going to be fun. I don't know. From the beginning. All right, so today we're going to, in a short 2-hour period, cover everything you need to know about working with sellers. Doesn't that sound like fun? How to succeed through sellers. And this is part of the Xcellerate program that Century 21 offers to get people's business up and going. This is actually week 3. If you want the other weeks, you have to talk to me. Like all of our sessions, we're going to begin with a focus. I'm going to be going through some of this. We're going to go through it directly and maybe a little bit briskly, but we're going to have deep dives into some of the specific subjects as individual classes later. So in terms of focus, if you want to launch and sustain a career that lasts, you need to work with sellers. This is an old line, you have to list to last in real estate. If all you ever do is work with buyers, you will probably not be a happy real estate agent, right? I'm just saying, there are a lot of reasons why sellers are better than buyers. And if you want buyers, there's no better way of getting them than to have listings. So one of the things that we're going to talk about succeeding with inventory and listings and succeeding through the listing presentation. Those of you that have a handout, this is sort of following it. I need to tell you what pages we're on. I think that this puts us in what would be page 7. And if you look at page 6, which is the page on the other side, inventory and listings, if you have listings, then you control the inventory, right? If you work with buyers, somebody else controls the inventory. If you have a good listing presentation, then your chances of getting the listing effectively, quickly, are much higher. And we know from research what it is that sellers want. They want to get the most money, and they want to do it in the least amount of time, and they also would like to have it as convenient as possible. We'll talk about that. And then we're going to talk about how to become a top producer at top speed. Some of you may think this will be top speed. We're going to go through pre-qualifying, the pre-listing packet, the listing presentation, marketing and servicing listings, contract to close. We're all going to do that today, right? That's all, right? Now, on each of these subjects, we're going to have later a deeper dive into some of the specifics, but we're on page 7, where we're talking about the payoff from a listings-based business, and we're beginning with ATM. And part of the reason, I think, for this metaphor is that that's where you get your money, isn't it? Yeah. From the ATM. Actually, it's from the phone now, but it used to be an ATM. And what the A stands for is attraction. Now, I've tried this, and what I did is I took 2 of my for sale panels, right, for a house, 2 of them with the little holes at the top. And I created this little strap with a little shoulder pad so that it could be worn like a sandwich side. And I tried to get my buyers to wear it when they went to work, right? And you know how uncooperative they refuse, right? Isn't that they won't wear my sign around and show everybody. If I list a home, I get to put my sign in front of the property. If I list the home, I get to market the property with my sign and with me being the agent. Now, if you ask yourself, when can you market yourself as an agent effectively? That's almost entirely with sellers and hardly ever with buyers, right? Once you've closed, you could have you handing them the key, to the house and that sort of stuff. But for a sustained long-term marketing, having a for sale sign is a lot better. There's attraction that you get with listings that you do not get with buyers, right? Buyers don't wear a sign that says, I'm their agent. Now, T is time. T is time. How many buyers can you effectively work with at any one time? Not too many. right? You understand 3 motivated buyers will just about wear you out. 5 could kill you. 10, you're now not selling anybody a house, right? You understand there isn't enough time on the weekend to work with 10 motivated buyers. There's not enough time to work with 5 motivated buyers. You understand? By the time you have 3 motivated, we want to see homes, you're supposed to be our agent, we're supposed to be your priority, you run out of time, right? I've had 15 listings at one time, and at the company that I was with, I wasn't even considered a top listing agent. Right, I wasn't in the top 10 at that time, and it doesn't take that much time. I would say that working with buyers takes 10 to 20 times as much in terms of allocation of your time than it does having a listing. You could have 20 listings, but you can't have 10 buyers, right? You can't really have 5 motivated buyers at any one time. And then there's the question of money. Right, that's what the M stands for. By the way, in terms of time, not only does it take less time, the outcome is more predictable. I forgot to say that about time. Outcome is more predictable with sellers. Do we have control with a seller as to pricing, marketing, and other strategies? Perhaps. Right? We may have more control, but with buyers, we have less control. Right? It's less predictable that they're going to actually be able to buy. With a listing, I can tell you pretty much if it's going to sell or not. Right? So the M is money. If you use great scripts and provide great value, you can set the commission rate. What is the standard commission on listings right now? 5%? Say the last 4 listing appointments I've gone on with agents that I've coached, 3 out of those 4 were 6%. Right? One of them just listed $1.8 million property, 6%. Right? And by the way, one of the agents that I'm coaching was telling me, couldn't be here today because not feeling well, that she got a referral for a $4 million property, and so the first thing she told the clients were, I won't charge you that much because it's a $4 million property. This is not the way to look at it, right? You understand? I learned this the hard way. I was working in the Almaden area, and I was on a listing appointment. It seemed like everything was going well, and the guy asked me how much was my commission, and I was trying to get a foothold in that area, and I said 4.5%, and he listed it with somebody else. And I asked him why, and he said, look at my house. I don't have a cheap house. I don't drive cheap cars. I don't wear cheap clothes. I don't have a cheap lawyer. I don't go to a cheap doctor. I don't want a cheap real estate agent. Right? That's what he told me. And then it clicked. Oh, right? People that live in $4 million homes don't want cheap help. Right? You know, oh, that was nice. So, and by optimizing the price, you can influence how quickly the home sells. And by optimizing the price and knowing your scripts, there's a handout outside. Sorry to point that out after you read all the way through. But I was going to tell everybody it's like Southwest Airlines, you know, to the anyhow. That's on page 7. We're going to get into this now. We're going to not cover today because we have a lot about what's happened in the past week and getting down to business. What I want to do is we're going to start with Ernest at page 10. And that was nice. Thank you. One of the I hope that's right. One of the goals of this is for you to put together a plan. How about that? A plan for getting listings, and the plan should include a list of people that you're going to be contacting in order to do business with them, and you should start with the people you know. Everybody, one of the goals is to get everybody you know, everybody from Google or Hotmail or AOL or whatever email service you use, everybody that's in your phone, everybody that's in your Facebook friend, everybody that you're connected to in LinkedIn. We want to get them into a database. And then you're going to want to have conversations with the people that are in your database, and you want it to preferably be listing oriented. So we're going to start by talking to the people we know. Then that's your sphere, right? If you've got a sphere of influence, this is on page 9 if you're wondering where I am at. Sometimes I wonder. If you've got a sphere of influence, the question is, have you had a conversation with everybody that's in your sphere of influence? Do they know that you're in real estate? Have you put them on you send them a newsletter? Have you had a conversation with them? In addition, we're going to talk about new contacts, vendors, referrals, and of course, for sale by owners and expireds. Now, we're going to be doing a deeper dive into each one of these, but if you look at page 10 is the beginning of our scripts. I'm not really too sure. The scripts. And I just want to spend a couple of minutes looking at these. The first one is about calling friends, family, and acquaintances. Now, this is not a bad script. Hi, this is Mike. I've been thinking about you because I wanted to share with you that I'm in real estate now. For some of you, this will be a surprise to some of your friends. Isn't that right? I actually have agents that work in the tech field, and the guy told me that, well, he said he hasn't actually told anyone yet. It's been like 8 months, right? Because he just doesn't want to tell everybody. Right? So in order to make money in real estate, people have to know you're in real estate. Right? So whether you need to break it to them, right? Do it gently, but tell everybody you know that you're in real estate. I'm affiliated with Century 21, a wonderful, cool, awesome firm in, by the way, if you're not at Century 21, you can't say a wonderful, cool, awesome firm. I'm sorry, you have to say something else. Oh, and you know the company. Do you think most people know Century 21? Yes. Right. I was, there's a handout out there on the table. If I bought you coffee, and I have 2 coffees up here, you can pick which one you want. One of them is a Starbucks cup, and the other one is, do we have Circle K around here? No. All right. How about, I was trying to think of a 7-Eleven, right? So you can have coffee, and you can either have coffee from the 7-Eleven cup or from Starbucks. Which one do you pick? Starbucks, right? Why? The brand. The brand, right? You understand? It isn't necessarily the coffee. In many taste tests, McDonald's does better than Starbucks, right? But do people pay more for a brand they recognize? Yes. Right? Does it help if you tell them your company and they say, huh? Who's that? Isn't that a paint store? Isn't that a paint store? Right? Does it help that when you ask them, do you know the company, they say, yes, we know Century 21. Or does that help? Right. It helps if they know the brand. I'm working with an experienced broker in a network, and basically what we're doing is asking people, who do you know that is interested in buying or selling a home or investing in real estate? At some point you have to ask. Now, if you want to be gentle about this, you go and meet the people for coffee or lunch. Ask them questions about themselves so that they'll talk about what's going on with them. And after a while, there's a natural inclination to say to you, so what's up with you? Right? You understand? At that point, you spring it on them, you're in real estate. Right? You know, because if you tell them in advance, they might not come to, well, never know. So you spring it on them that you're in real estate and ask them, this is the question I suggest. So let me ask you an honest question. If you were to hear of somebody that was thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, would you feel comfortable referring them to me? And if they say yes, first if they say no, don't invite them to your Thanksgiving dinner, no Christmas present this year, right? You understand? Forget their birthday, right? Right? Isn't that right? You're not even going to type happy birthday on Facebook Because if they say yes, I would, sure, absolutely, wonderful, I'm counting on you for that. Right? Now, you could soften that a little bit, but can I count on you? Will we get more referrals if we directly ask, get their commitment, and get them to and say, I'm counting on you to do this? And by the way, I realize this isn't going to be the top of your mind, so is it okay for me to, maybe follow up and see occasionally if you've heard of somebody that wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? If they say yes, my belief is they have agreed to work for me. Isn't that what they agreed to do? Yeah. Right? And they've given me permission to manage them. Right? So, again, we're going to do deeper dives into each one of these. I want to get into the meat of this, but there's even some suggested text messaging. And if you look on page 11, there's about calling a referral. So let's say they say to you, yes. As a matter of fact, I do know somebody who's thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate. Let's say yes. By the way, for buyers, we're going to do that next week. But for buyers, what I've found is that if you have a property in mind, let's say it's a 2-story, 5-bedroom, downstairs bedroom with a full bath and a half bath, master upstairs with 3 other bedrooms and a hall bath, that's a particular configuration of a house, right? You understand? That's a in-law, move up, grandma's downstairs, everybody else is upstairs kind of house. I used to tell people about a house like that, people I knew. I would say yes, because what do they say to you when you tell them you're in real estate? What question do people always ask you when they know you're in real estate? How's the market? Isn't that what they're looking at, right? Isn't that so how's the real estate business going? How's the market? And I would say, wonderful, fantastic. I just saw this great house. It's on the market. It's 2-story, 5 bedrooms, downstairs. It's got a complete bedroom, bathroom, plus a half bath for the guests. Upstairs, it's got 4 bedrooms, master, all that. It's a great house for somebody looking for an in-law type of an arrangement. Who do you know that's looking to move in a bigger house? Now, do you understand? That's not the question. I didn't ask them, do you know anyone? Who do you know that's looking to move into a bigger house? That requires them to think. And sometimes they'll say, well, actually, I do know somebody that's looking. Now we have a referral. Hi, my name is, I'm a real estate agent affiliated with Century 21. So-and-so gave me and asked me to speak with you about your upcoming real estate needs. Can I help you with that? A new contacts. This is on page 12. So this is if you've met somebody at Starbucks or 7-Eleven buying your coffee, right? From those old crusty, beakers that look like they've been there for, anyhow, never mind. So just a follow-up script. I just wanted to follow up on our conversation and see what real estate needs you have. Now, I recommend, by the way, that you spend 30 minutes a day when you're new reading scripts aloud. Reading scripts aloud. And the more you do that, what's going to happen is occasionally it's going to come up, somebody's going to ask you a question, and the script will start to flow. There's also one for calling vendors and service providers, which I did a whole class on recently, right? Which is, I videoed. But let's look at on page 14, and we're going to spend an entire session later on for sale by owners and expireds. Right? There are more of them now than there were 6 months ago. Right? And let me just say, what's the best way to approach a for sale by owner or expired? If I were a for sale by owner or an expired listing, if you called me up, what would be a good line to begin with? I have somebody interested in your property.
How come you haven't sold your house?
How come you haven't sold your house? So if you say, I have somebody, okay, let's say I'm a for sale by owner, and you say, I have somebody interested in your property, I'd say, well, that's wonderful, that's great. If you bring a buyer and they buy the property, I'm willing to pay you a commission, but I don't want to list it.
That's okay. I have some off-market investors ready to write a check.
Right. So now there are two paths to take at this point. One path is we want to list the home, right? Which is what everybody, isn't that what everybody would rather do? You'd rather list the home. If we have a buyer for the for sale by owner, then that's a totally different conversation, right? Now we're doing something called a single party compensation agreement because the listing is not in the MLS, and the MLS is where it says I get paid a commission. We're doing a form called the seller non-agency form, right? It's a different contract than if it were on a listing, right? But is it our goal to find a buyer and sell that house to a buyer, or is our goal to get a listing? The goal is to get a listing. Well, is the goal of getting a listing is not to double-end it, right? What is the goal of once we have a listing? And by the way, this is I think a common misunderstanding. Many people agents that I talk to that have listings tell me, well, I want to find a buyer, I want to sell it, and I'm like, that's not the goal, right? This may sound backwards, but the goal of having a listing is not to sell the listing to a buyer. The goal is for the listing to sell. But not necessarily, the goal is not necessarily for me to double-end it. What would be the goal of having a listing? What is the primary goal when we have a listing? What was it? To get another listing. The goal of having a listing is to get another listing. And by the way, would my marketing be different if my goal was to get another listing versus my goal was to sell the property? It'd be totally different. Right? Now, if all I want to do is double-end my own listings, I'm playing a very small game. Right? I'm playing a small game. Right? The big game is to get another listing. Right? My first listing that I got in Blossom Valley was on Crow Lane. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was okay. They didn't either. Then across the street, they were the Lees, the Schmidts, after I sold that one, listed their home. Down the street, the Dondiandos listed their relatively newer Pan-Cal home. Then on Crow Court, another family listed their home. You understand? I got a listing, and pretty soon I had 5 in that area. That's the goal, right? The goal is to get another listing. Right now, we might sell it ourselves, but that's not the goal. Right? You understand? Not the goal. All right, so expires, do we say the same thing? I have a buyer for your house. See, that's what a lot of agents are trained to do on for sale by owners, to say I have a buyer for your property, because it's an easy way to get in and look at the property, right? It's an easy way to get in and look at the property, but we've set ourselves up to be a selling agent. And the premise of this is that we want to be the listing agent, not the selling agent. Does everybody understand that? If we say we have a buyer, then we are a selling agent. We are not a listing agent. Right? It's a different conversation. So we're going to start getting into the good stuff in a minute. Wasn't that good? So tactics and tools. This is on page 19. 20 is where we're going to zip into this. You and the seller both have the same goal, right? To get the most money in the shortest time with the least hassle. Your job is to demonstrate to the seller that you have the skills, resources, and tools to achieve that goal. And eventually to become a client for life. Now you can see on the page 20, and this is the process we're going to go through today. The first step is to pre-qualify. That way you can quickly determine the seller's motivators, level of motivation. You get an idea of what they're looking for. You get an idea of what price they have in mind. You find out what they owe on the property. You're professional. You build rapport. Right? That's all in pre-qualifying. Now there's a pre-qualifying questionnaire. And the first question we would ask is, why are you selling? When people would call me up and say, I'm thinking of selling my house. This is here someplace. This is on page 22. I would ask people, one of my first questions would be, why are you thinking of selling your home at this time? If they say, well, we really don't know, we were thinking about maybe moving to Oregon, looking at some homes in Grass Valley, and we were kind of wondering, if we were going to sell, then, what we would get for it, so we thought we'd talk to you. That's one level of motivation. If they say, well, we're retired and we want to move to Arizona, what should we ask them then?
When are you going to retire?
When? Okay. What else should we ask? Why are you thinking of moving to Arizona at this time? Now, if they say, well, we like golf and we like arid, hot, warm climates, right? Or they might say, well, our daughter is having our first grandchild, and we're planning on moving there so that we can be with her and the children. And is that a different level of motivation?
Yeah.
Right? So when is she expecting? Right? You understand? This is a different level of motivation. We always want to ask why. And if they give us an answer, we want to ask, why is that important to you? What does that mean to you? Right? Because whether or not you're going to sell the property and whether or not you're going to get your commission depends to a large degree on the motivation of the seller for selling. Right? We would like to know that. Right? Otherwise, you may end up going over and talking to people that really aren't that motivated to sell. They just want you to talk to them about pricing and that sort of stuff. How soon do you need to move there? Do you already have an agent there? Now, a lot of times they're going to say, no, not yet. Right? Now, does Century 21 have offices in Arizona? Yes. Right? Over 100,000 agents in 80 countries. So there's a chance that we could refer it to somebody else. What you do not want is it to go the other way around. Right? And would a referral for a listing be really good? Would you like that? Somebody from a Century 21 agent from Nevada refers a listing to you. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
How about this? You've already talked to these people, right? Or they're in your geographic farm, and they go to, I'll use Nevada, because they want to buy a house there. They meet a Century 21 agent in Nevada. That Century 21 agent in Nevada says, do you have an agent to sell your home? And they say, yeah, I do. Mike, I've talked to him. They'll say, great. They're going to send you a referral, asking for a referral fee. Right? You understand this is irritating because you're now paying a referral fee on somebody you might have gotten anyhow. Wouldn't it be better if we sent them the referral? We listed it at the full price without paying a referral fee, and we got a referral on the other end. Right? Do you understand? We don't want them, obviously a listing referral. I had one in Santa Clara last year. I didn't complain. 30% referral fee. But it was a listing in Santa Clara, 4 miles from the Apple campus. So I didn't complain. However, I would have much rather have sent that guy a referral and listed it myself.
Yeah.
Right? Does everybody get that? Right? So I just thought I would throw. This is the way I would always ask it. I said, have you been paying attention to what's been happening in your neighborhood in terms of the real estate market? Right? They used to say, yeah, we've been, very few people want to admit they're ignorant. And then, all right, I'm just saying. So they're probably going to say yes, right? I've been paying attention. Wonderful. Do you have an idea of what your house is likely to sell for? Now, you're going to get usually one of two answers. Some people will just say the number. They'll just say it. All right? Well, we think it's worth $850,000. Great. Is this a good thing to know before you go on the listing appointment?
Yes.
Right? Because there's a way to make the CMA show whatever number you just about want, right? If they say, well, yeah, we have been paying attention to the market, but we're not going to tell you, you have to tell us. That's the deal, right? You have to come over and tell us, right? You understand? People are going to say that. I'm not going to tell you what I think. You're going to have to tell me. Wonderful. Is there a certain amount of money you expect? So then I would ask them some other questions. And then near the end, I would go back and say, by the way, is there a certain amount of money you're looking to net from the sale of your house? And they'll say, well, yeah, we're going to need $600,000 to buy the house in Auburn that we're looking for. Wonderful. Do you have a loan on your property now? right? They say, yeah, we do. Now, do you understand, if they tell me what their loan is and how much they need in cash from the sale of their house, if I'm even have rudimentary math skills, I can figure out what the property needs to sell for in order for them to get the money they want and pay off the loan they have, right? Would we want to know that? And one of the, I don't know if this is a question here, but you could write it in. This is probably one of the most important questions to ask. Will you describe your house to me? Describe it. Describe your house. Now, many times you might think, well, I don't need that. I got Realist, RPR. I've got access to all that information. Why would I? So an agent that I'm coaching, I go on listing appointments with agents that I'm coaching, right? So she has an appointment, and she has this appointment in East Palo Alto. She met the guy at an open house, and so this was going to be the deal. She was going to do the CMA. She was going to do all the information about the market and what's going on. She'd answer those questions. My job was to explain what we were going to do to sell the property and get the guy to sign the listing contract, right? That was all. That was my job. So she had prepared the CMA. Everything was beautiful. She had prepared a CMA on a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,300 and some odd square foot house. When we arrived, we were looking at a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,800 square foot house. They had been doing some improvements without the benefit of permits. All right. By the way, if that scares you, then you should get out of the real estate business right now. Right? I tell investors, I had an investor who said, I don't want to buy anything without permits. And I said, you're not an investor. You give it up. Just give it up. Right? Give it up. You're not an investor. Because there's a significant percentage of our properties have been modified without the benefit of improvements. I want them to describe the house. Is it possible that they haven't done anything that involves the lack of permits, but that the county record is wrong? The answer is yes. Sometimes it's wrong. And I'll tell you, by the way, would this be a useful thing for you to know before you went there, that they've got a house with a bunch of unpermitted additions? Would that have an effect on your market analysis? Do we do a CMA, by the way, for a 5-bedroom or a 3-bedroom? They have a 3-2, according to the records. They do not have permits, but it's a 5-3 now. What do we do a CMA for?
3, but it's legal.
No, we're going to do one. So how many times can we put it in the MLS? Can we put it in twice?
One time.
One time. So we're putting it in the MLS. What do we put it in? 3-bedroom or 5?
3 bedroom.
No, say 3 legal.
No, we have to answer the question, how many bedrooms?
3 bedroom.
So this is what I say to agents, because they call me sometimes outside the house. Like, what do I do? So this is what I say. When you walked through the house, how many bedrooms were there? They say, 5. Put down 5. What about bathrooms? How many bathrooms were there? 3. Put down 3. Now, should we maybe note that, by the way, the statewide buyer and seller advisory already warns them that there may be unpermitted additions. May we note that there may be unpermitted additions in the seller property questionnaire? Is there going to be a disclosure that there's unpermitted additions? But how many, does it affect the marketing of the property if I put it in as a 1,300 3-2 when it's really a 2,800 5-3? How can I market that as a 3-2 at 1,300 square feet? I need to put it in as a 5-3. Then the next question is, well, what's the appraiser going to do? What's the appraiser going to do? I get asked that a lot. Want to hear my answer? When the appraiser walks through the house, how many bedrooms is the appraiser going to see? 5. How many bathrooms is the appraiser going to see? 3. Now, is it possible the appraiser is going to make a note that this is not a permitted 5-3? By the way, one of the things I always carry with me, and I log in before I go, just because sometimes my phone logs me out of apps, RPR is the mobile app. So this is what I was doing in that appointment while my partner was talking about other things, I told her to throw away the CMA. Throw away. All right. And by the way, this is what I told the seller. The seller said, well, have you done a market analysis? And I say, no, that's not really professional. If I were an appraiser, I wouldn't just give you a number right then and there, right? I would come and look at it, and then I'd do research, and then I'd come back. That's what I'm doing here. I've come here to do research, and I'll get back to you after I've done some research. But I think it's unprofessional to throw out a number when I haven't even seen the house.
Yes.
That's what I told him. Right, that's what I told him.
Good
Right,
one, good
yeah,
one.
you like that?
Good one.
And by the way, wow, he accepted it,
Yeah.
right? And I was the only agent that said I was going to do 2 steps. So all of a sudden I look a little bit different. But while I was there, I'm pulling up my RPR, and I noticed that, guess what? 2 doors down, there was a 3-2 that was heavily modified without permits and sold as a 5-3. And I'm looking at its dollars per square foot. It was only a little while ago. And finally I said to the guy, I think 1.2. Right? And I could tell he liked the number. We'll get into that in a little bit. By the way, it sold for 1.22. Right? So by having RPR's mobile app with me, it's going to be giving me an automated valuation model of that property and all the things that are happening in the neighborhood. It's useful if you have to be nimble, right? But you could avoid this by asking them to describe the house. Have you made any improvements? Have you done any remodeling, any renovation? Tell me about it. What else? Have you ever sold a home before? What did you like about the other agents? I'm looking forward to seeing your house. Can you tell me a little bit about it? I guess that is there. Do you have any questions for me? By the way, sometimes I ask people, just so I can understand where you are in the process, when I come over on Tuesday night, are you planning on listing the property at that time? And I've had people say yes. That's why I called you. So you could come over and list my house. Does this change your attitude about going on this appointment when they've already said that? Right? And so we want to learn. So this is a good pre-qualifying questionnaire, right? The more we know in advance, the more effective we're going to be at the appointment. If we know what their motivation is, and we know what they've done, and we know what price they're looking for, if we know that, we're in a much stronger position than we would be if we didn't. All right. A pre-listing package. Real estate agents, and I realize this is an old metaphor because wallpaper is not really, a thing like it used to be, right? And real estate agents, even if you're young, you know what wallpaper is, don't you? Right? Real estate agents are like wallpaper. And the reason I say it's like wallpaper is a pattern repeated over and over and over and over again. Real estate agents are like wallpaper. They say the same things, they dress the same, they drive the same cars, right? They talk and act alike. I'm just saying. And if you want to get a higher commission rate and or to get a listing, and you want to show people that you're different from the other agents, my suggestion is that you actually do something different than everybody else. And lots of people talk about pre-listing packages, but very few people do it. And what you should have with you at all times is 3 pre-listing packages. You should have a listing presentation ready. Now, the pre-listing package can be done in advance in that it's information about selling a house that would be somewhat generic, maybe specific to your geographic area, but not specific to that particular house. Right? And you can make it easy and make it informative. Advance information on everything your prospector needs to know about the process of selling their house and a preview of what they can expect of you as a listing agent. That's the definition. That's the definition. I went through variations of, at first I didn't do it at all. Because I found when I started marketing in Blossom Valley, it was easy. right? I know it sounds terrible, but once I had 5 listings, it became a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get business when you've got business than it is to get business when you don't got business, right? And then I decided I'd move to Almaden because the prices were higher. Yeah, other agents have thought of this too. Right, and so like 80% of my appointments in Blossom Valley, they only talk to me. I don't think I had an appointment in Almaden where they weren't talking to other agents. Right, all of a sudden it was competitive. Right, not easy. It wasn't just walking in and asking them to sign the listing agreement. And so then I started to do what were the best practices just to survive. It was either give up Almaden and just go back to Blossom Valley, or adapt, right? And so one of the things I started doing was a pre-listing package. And I did it because not everybody else was doing it. And I started with the folder, right? I had a Century 21 folder, and I was at Century 21 when I was doing this, right? So it's a different company, different branch, and I'd have a folder and I would drop it off or give it to them. Eventually it became a binder. And eventually the binder was the binders I would go and buy that would be used for photograph and albums, right? The kind with sort of the leather, not real leather, but you understand, don't give me the look, but, plastic leather, the soft covers, the ones that looked like they were expensive binders. And it had tabs, right? I had a table of contents and there were tabs. And I collected information from the title companies about selling the home. I collected information. I had a home warranty tab. That's a whole different discussion about why the seller should have seller's coverage while the property is on the market. I had tabs about selling the property. I had sample flyers, marketing materials, and things like that. Right? And one of the things I learned is that if I gave them this binder, they almost always would meet with me because I gave them a binder, right? You understand? There were less people I got less calls from sellers saying, we've already hired someone else, you don't need to come by. Got a lot less of that, right? Also, time to get up. Also, if they didn't list with me that night, I would leave the binder, right, for them to look at. So that gave me a footprint still in their house, right? You understand? They still had something in mind that they would have to give back. And I had things in the binder like I asked them to write out the 10 things they like best about being in their home, right? That was in the binder. I had a little bit of homework. By the way, most of the time people don't do the homework. Engineers sometimes would do the homework, but usually not everybody would do the homework. And so I'd give them a binder so they could read stuff. I gave them reports from RPR on what was going on in the area, what was the graphs and the charts, all that stuff, right? I put that in the binder, and I would get it to them before the appointment, no matter what that took. I would have sometimes it delivered to their work, right, in a big envelope, or it would be on their doorstep during the day, but I wanted them to have it in advance, right, so they could read it and see, they would already have information, and it makes me look different if I have a pre-listing practice. I'd like to send over some information that will speed up our meeting and help you make an informed decision. Will you take a few minutes to review it before we get together? After reviewing it, if you have any additional questions or need other data, feel free to call me. This can all be done as a PDF and sent to them too. But there's something about the binder, right? Especially one that was not cheap, right? That created a different effect, right?
If they didn't work with you, would you just still leave the binder?
No, I'd come and get it.
Yeah. So
sometimes I'd leave it because it all depends on
why they didn't go with you.
Right. Let's say. So agents, by the way, were getting listings up, and they probably still are, by lowering their commission and raising the price. Right? You understand? One way that agents get listings is they charge less commission and they suggest a higher price. So if let's say I were using that tactic and you were the seller, I would say, well, have you been talking to other agents? Yeah. What's the range in prices they've given? Well, one agent said our property could be worth $1 million. And I'd say, I'd make a face. I'd say, 1 million? Really? Wow. Our company has sold quite a few homes in this area, several recently, for more than that. And they weren't nearly as nice as yours. Maybe the agent was looking for a easy sale. Huh? Do you think that's possible? They were just looking for what do you think people want to hear? Do you think they want to hear that? Wow, I can't imagine that. Only $1 million. We've sold several homes in the area for a lot more than that. They weren't nearly as nice as yours. 6%. Wow, they're really taking you, aren't they? Right. Now, the problem is that the market is going in the other direction right now.
Yes.
All right, you understand?
Yes.
The market is going in the other direction.
Yes.
So, however, if I realize this, I'm going to leave that's what they're going to list with somebody like that. If I realize that, I want them to keep my binder because this is going to become an expired listing. Right? I want them to keep it. I think I said this the other week. The early bird gets the worm, but the second mouse gets the cheese. Think about that. Right. Sometimes you don't want to be the first mouse. Right. So we're going to give them what to include in the packet: a cover letter, a color cover page with your logo, Century 21 logo. All other pages can be a list of what they should expect from their listing agent. Questions to ask when interviewing other agents. You should be careful about that list, because it might ask questions like, full-time, part-time, and if you're not full-time, you may not want them to have that. Reasons why a property sells, a marketing plan for the property. We're going to talk more about that. A long list of websites where their home would appear. At Century 21, we syndicate over 500 websites. All right. Your qualifications and achievements, your company, list of reasons, testimonials. If you haven't ever sold a house, can you get testimonials?
Sure.
Do you have friends that that have worked with you, have known you for a long time, that could write a letter that said, I know Mike, I've worked with him for a long time. Anybody thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate couldn't go wrong by, start with people that owe you money. Right, and see if they'll... Property disclosures. By the way, all right, to take this up a notch, I bought special paper. And the special paper is 2 white yellow, NCR, no carbon required, inkjet or laser printer paper. Special paper. Now, the reason for this is, what is the goal of a listing appointment? Let me just do that. What's the goal of a listing appointment? To get them to sign a listing contract. Right? Now, that would mean I would have one with me when I'm there. Right, a listing contract. Now, could it be done by electronic signatures?
Yes.
Is this harder on a listing when you're sitting there at the kitchen table with somebody talking? If I say to them, well, I'll send you a link. Right, and then you can like click through it and then sign it, and then we're all good to go. Or would it be easier if I actually had a form for them to sign? Have the form. So what I would do is in zip forms, I would create a transaction. I would import the information from RPR, if you don't know what I'm talking about. And then I would print out the transfer disclosure statement, the seller property questionnaire, the residential listing agreement with all of its accoutrements, and the seller authorization to exclude from the MLS. And I would print out the MLS. There's an MLS listing input form. And I would merge their names and the address into the form, not the commission amount, not the price of the property, not the starting date, not the end date of the listing, but all the other information. And you have to print 2 copies, one white, one yellow. And what that does is they can sign right there and you can give them a copy. Right? Also, that was, yes.
So that
Well, I've already put in their name and the address and the APN number. I write that in. I write that in while we're talking. Right? Or you can put in 6%, and then if you're going to give them a discount, exit out and write it in and say, I normally don't do this. All right? You know, normally I don't do this. Right? But I'm waiving. Right? Now, I actually believe I had people list with me simply because I'd already gone to so much trouble. Right? You understand? I'm saying I'm ready. By the way, I would make a sample flyer for their house. Right? I'd go and take a picture of it from the outside if I didn't have a good one. And I would have a sample flyer. I would have sample flyers. If you were an ad agency and I were a corporate client and I asked to talk to you, would you bring a portfolio with you?
Yes.
Right. Now, what that means that you should do, if you're serious about getting listings, is whether you have listings or don't have listings, you should go into what's called Business Builder in Century 21, but it's the software that would make just listed, just sold, and property flyers, find office listings, and make some flyers with your name and information on it, different kinds. You should have some condos, some townhomes, some single-family homes, some luxury homes. Right? And you would put them in that binder so that they can see that you do have marketing material. Let me say it plainly. I was having this conversation with buyers and sellers are different. Buyers, in a way, are easier because they buy something tangible, a house. So the buyer is oftentimes less interested in you. They're interested in the house. The questions buyers are asking is, so what is the square footage? How many bedrooms does it have? Is it a quiet neighborhood? What are the schools? Right? They're not asking you questions. Right? You understand? Buyers generally aren't, unless they're just curious and killing time, oftentimes don't say, so how long have you been in real estate and how many homes have you sold? Right? Buyers don't care. They want to know what the school district is. Right? That's what they care about. They care about the house. And even if you're incompetent, even if they have to watch you fumble for 10 minutes to open the lockbox, even if you trip while you're walking into the house, you understand? Even if you can't find stuff, if you find them the right house, they're going to let you represent them. Right? You understand? Just find them the house. Sellers, however, very different. When a seller lists their home, they get an intangible. They get an agent's promise to perform a service sometime in the future. Right? You understand? That's all they get. That's why they're more interested in, well, how many homes have you sold and what's your background and how long have you been in real estate? And the reason why we're going to the trouble of doing a pre-listing packet is that we want to be able to show them tangible representation of what this intangible service is going to look like in the future. Right? We want to show them that we know how to make a flyer. Right? You know. And by the way, if you make a bunch of them, they think they're yours. And what the goal is, and by the way, in Blossom Valley, I had like 50 of them, different styles, and they were all mine. Right? Over time. Right? Over time. Right? But you understand, over time, that you want them to be your real ones, but take the time to produce marketing examples that would look like that house. And that means different ones for townhomes and condo, right? You understand? If you could show them samples of marketing materials that you've put together that look like their house, that's a lot better. Any other ideas for there's, there's a lot of stuff here. Now, if you've done everything right so far, you now have a listing appointment. Isn't that right? And you need to put together a seller listing presentation. And by the way, one of the assignments for this week for those of you is to put together a pre-listing packet. I'm actually going to put together one. I probably won't have it by Wednesday, but I'll show you what I use. I still have the chapters and all that. The listing presentation is a meeting between the agent and the seller prospects in which the agent demonstrates their ability to represent the seller in the transaction and closes for the listing appointment. The goal is to get them to sign a listing contract that night. Right? That means you need to have one. Right? Doing it, can we have them sign a black and white copy and then we'll take it away and scan it and send it to them? right? That technically doesn't comply with the Business and Professions Code, and you can get away with it. But having the ability of letting them sign something and giving them a copy right then and there, I'm just saying, right? And by the way, sometimes when they saw that I'd filled out all the disclosures and all that sort of stuff with their name and stuff, you understand what I'm saying to them is, I'm ready to go right now. I'm ready. Right now I'm ready. Right? I already got all the forms ready for you to sign. I've got sample flyers. I'm ready. Right? Are you ready? So what are we going to do? First of all, you got to show up on time. Now, for some real estate agents, this is a challenge. All right, set your alarm for 30 minutes early. Trick yourself by telling yourself that it's a 30-minute earlier appointment. So I guess for those of you that are wondering where I'm at, which I oftentimes do, this is on page 25. And we're going to, on page 25 is really where we are. Is that all right? Yeah. Right. Now, by the way, we're going to deep dive into each of these. I'm going to do a class on for sale by owners and expireds. I'm going to do a class on working with distressed properties. This Wednesday, I'm doing something special for Century 21 agents on how to get business from new home subdivisions, right? Just as a bonus, I thought I'd throw that out. And one of them is going to be on putting together a listing presentation, right? And practicing the words and practicing the presentation. Many times, there's only one agent being interviewed. Many times, you don't need a presentation. However, you need to be prepared for one. And there's different personality styles. There are analytic styles. There's what's a driver style, which is really, quick results oriented. There's the promoting style, which is more of an outgoing style. There's a supportive style, which is really more for the status quo. Which of those styles should you prepare for when you're putting together a listing presentation or a pre-listing packet? Want me to name them again? The driver wants to make a decision quickly. The promoter is more about relationships and fun. The supporter is about relationships but not fun as much. And the analytical style is about not making a mistake. And the answer is the analytical. Because the others you can fake, but you can't fake that one. I was on a listing appointment and I was doing my deal. I'm talking. And the guy looked distracted. Right? And he actually at a moment got up and he said, "Oh, keep going. And he was in the kitchen doing stuff while I was talking. And then I slowed down to take a breath, and he said, "Will you need a key tonight?" Right? And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Good, I had some copies made." You understand, this was a high D. He didn't want to hear it. Right? You understand? I was there to list his house, get the keys, and get going. Right? Now, then we don't need the packet. Right, you understand? I mean, the fact that we have it, he might be impressed because he says, well, at least this guy, is spending the time to write, but he doesn't want to see it. The engineer is going to read they'll be correcting any grammar errors you have in your pre-listing packet. Right? But you should be prepared for them. Yes. Many agents would go with me on listing appointments because they wanted to see a listing presentation, and a lot of times they were disappointed, not because I didn't get the listing, but because there was no presentation. It was just a conversation, right? Just a conversation. It's a different style. However, remember the one where the agent had prepared the CMA for the 3-2, right? She hadn't done a lot of research. She didn't ask a lot of questions. She just said, "I have an appointment. It's Friday. It's at 4 o'clock. You have to go. I promised him you'd be there." Because she told the guy that she had never listed a home before after she made the appointment, but sold him on meeting me. That was the whole deal. So when we show up, one of the things that she had not found out or shared with me is that we were one of 6 agents that he was interviewing. Right? He was interviewing the whole all the names you've heard of, and a discount broker that would do it for $3,000, and an Alon Pinnell, and a Coldwell Banker, and an independent. And the way he began was, after we were sitting there, he said, okay, show me your presentation. Right? And I'm fine with that, but I take the presentation with me all the time. Whether I use it or not depends upon what happens when I'm there. So if the owner doesn't want one, should I give it to him anyhow?
Yes.
Should I have said to the guy with the keys, now wait a second, just sit back. We're not ready for that yet. Just sit back, folks. This is going to take a while. Right? No, right. And so one of the things that I learned from Mike Ferry, I'll just say it, the Tom Ferry's father. Of course, that would be the Ferry. Anyhow, he said, only talk about what's important to the seller and nothing else. Talk about what's important to the seller and nothing else. Only talk about what's important to the seller. Don't talk about anything else. And the more you talk about anything else, the more likely you are to screw it up. Right? Because you're going to wander into an area and they're going to go, oh my God, I didn't realize that. I don't want to sell my, oh no, right? Only talk about how do we know what's important to the seller? Ask them. So some people, one of the agents who wasn't able to make it because she was ill has seen me, I've gone with her on 4 listing appointments and we've gotten 4 listings, right? She's seen me do this a few times, right? And what I always start with is, besides, this is what I do, right? So first of all, I'll start from the beginning and go through it. Is that okay? Right. Don't be late. Number 1. Don't be late. Right? By the way, if it's a competitive listing, many agents may be late. Right? They'd be late to their funeral if they could. Number 2, do not park in their driveway or in front of their house. Park a little bit off so they can't see you from looking out their window. Right? Because if you arrive 30 minutes early and you park right in front of their house and and they're like looking out the window at you, it's just not the right thing. You also might be taking a parking space that one of them thinks is theirs when they come by. Right? You understand? So you don't, knock on the door, step back. All right? So you're not like scaring them. All right? And then say, hi, thanks for, my name's Mike, District 21, I have an appointment, I'm here to list your house. And we walk in, where do you want to sit? You want to sit at the kitchen table. You don't want to sit on the couch while one of them is on one chair and the other one's on the other chair, and you're trying to balance everything on a coffee table. You don't want to sit at a dining room table, especially if it's got stuff in it and you have to look over the flower arrangement to see them. Where are they most comfortable? They're most comfortable usually at the kitchen table. Where do guests sit at in the dining room and in the living room? Friends and family sit at the kitchen table. That's where they're more comfortable making decisions. That's where you want to be. So you have stuff. I always have stuff. And I say, can I put down, why don't we go to the kitchen table? Let me drop off my stuff. And this is what I say, right? And I say, give me a tour of the property. Pretend you're a real estate agent. And you're showing me the property. And by the way, a lot of times, some of you know I have a real estate school. And I recruit people. A lot of times I'll say, that was great. Have you ever thought about getting a real estate license? Some of them have, by the way. So now, and I say, go ahead and point out everything that you think that would be important. Act like you're an agent. Show me your property. And some people get into it, right? And they're going around and they're explaining stuff to me. Right now, what I want to do is to perhaps take some notes, but I'm really looking to build rapport. right? In other words, I'm looking for information. I'm looking for something that I could learn from them that might allow me to connect with them, right? Whatever that is, right? It varies. I was in Almaden. The guy had grapes, right, growing in his backyard. His garage, he had converted part of it. He had a cooler, a big room that kept his wine at a particular temperature, right? And I was looking at the grapes. He was interviewing several agents, and I was looking at the grapes, and I made some comment about that. And he was like, yeah, all the agents make, he was like, something like that. And I said, my brother has a winery. And he was like, and then the name hit him, and he said, is that your, and I said, yes. My brother had won a gold medal in Zinfandel that year at the LA County Wine Arts Fair, and he said, can you give me a case of that wine? I said, yes. Now, my brother and I didn't get along very well, but when I went to visit my father, I took one of his, right? Right, but and it could be anything. Whatever, right? And it's just, people like to do business with people they like and know and feel some sort of a connection to. So now that we've done that, we're back at the table, right? You understand? We've done a little tour, we're back at the table. And what I always start off with is, why don't you tell me what's important to you? What do you want most from this presentation? One of the other agents who didn't make it today, I went with her on her first listing appointment, and before we went, she wanted to do role play, and so she was like pretending that we were at the table, and so she starts off with a little speech, about what we're going to do today, and I said, don't do that, right? Don't start off with that. Start off by asking them what they want to know, what they want to learn, what's important to them. All right, start with that. So we go on the appointment, and she does that, and they said, well, we have a list of questions we want answered. And so, and by the way, whatever they say, do that first. I don't care what the books say. Don't talk about price until the end. If they say that's what we want to know, do that first. So in this case, they had a list of questions. We went and answered the questions. She answered 90% of them herself. I was simply there as an exhibit, I think. And we got the listing. She got the listing. And it turns out they were interviewing other agents, and one of the other agents they interviewed was Mary Tan, who some of you may or may not know, but this was in Cupertino, and Mary Tan sells an awful lot of homes in Cupertino. But she didn't get the listing. And afterwards, because by the way, when we were leaving, I said to the people, so how did we do? And they're like, well, do you want, honest feedback? And he said, no, I want you to lie. Yes. And what they didn't like about Mary Tan is she talked about herself and talked and talked and talked and talked, and they never got to ask their questions, right? They didn't care how long she'd been in business or how many other homes she had sold in Cupertino. They didn't care. They had questions, and Mary Tan did not answer their questions. We did. We got the listing. Right? That was the first listing this agent had ever gotten. Right? Do you understand why we want to do that? Whatever it is that's important, remember, talk about what's important to the seller and perhaps nothing else. All right? So, but do we need to have a presentation? Sometimes they're going to say, give me your presentation, you better have one. Right? So we begin the conversation. There's a listen, adjust. How am I doing? Yeah, not too bad. Establish credibility and trust. So if you're, if this is, where am I? How about we're on page 20? 26. I was just seeing if you were paying attention. So if it's someplace where you know the area, you know the neighborhood, you know the people, you might want to bring that in. Reestablish rapport. You want to establish rapport at your first contact with the seller. That's on the phone. You begin the conversation. That's where we are in 27. You said you need to move by August. So the kids can start school in your new home. Is that still the case? If we were to rank a listing presentation, a listing appointment from a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being 0, right, and 10 being, 10, what a 10 would look like if you were watching a real estate agent doing a level 10 presentation, they would be listening and asking questions 90% of the time. 10% of the time, the agent is explaining stuff. Do you understand that? If you wanted to know what would a great listing presentation look like, it doesn't look like a presentation. Right? It's asking questions, getting them to talk. Keep asking questions, getting them to talk. Have you ever sold a home before? Yes or no? Right? If they say yes, great. How did it go? Who did you use? Did you do it by yourself or did you hire an agent? Why did you pick that agent? What did you like about that agent? What didn't you like about that agent? You know why that's important? Let's say they say, and I've had people say this, well, our agent did open houses like every weekend, and we know the only reason they were doing open houses was so they could get more business. One of our neighbors would go in and listen to the agent, and they weren't even trying to sell our house. They were just trying to get other business. All they did is disrupt our life, and they were just using our house to get more business, and we thought that was unprofessional. We hated it. Now, would this be good for me to know before I explain to them how I do open houses?
Yes.
Right? So, by the way, I'm not talking about open houses until after they sign the listing. After they sign the listing, I'm going to explain to them why open houses is more effective and convenient for them, and we're going to get them a better price. But I'm not going to argue. This is not the time to debate them about open houses. Right? Are you talking to any other brokers? Are you talking to any other agents? Now, some people are afraid to ask this because maybe they're not, and they hadn't even thought of it. And now that I've mentioned it, now they're going to think of it and start asking other agents, give me a break, right? Are you talking to other brokers? Yes or no? They say yes. Great. Which ones? I've never had anyone not tell me. Why them? Why them? What are you looking for in an agent when you list your home? What would you say is the most important thing to you that the agent's going to do? Why that? What does that mean to you? Right, you understand, if we ask enough questions, they're going to tell us how to sell to them. Right? They're going to explain, we want an agent who's going to do these things. Guess what your presentation is going to be? I'm going to do those things. But the idea that we can just go give a presentation without knowing what they're looking for, that's dangerous. All right? So you have a conversation, you listen, you adjust, and we're going to do a class on this. I have a list of like 44 questions, which I forced myself to type out one day. Most of them I'm good when I'm at the appointment because a lot of them come from the other, right? I ask a question, they answer it, they ask another question. You need to be very curious when you're on a listing appointment. Remember why you have one mouth and two ears, right? Remember that? You're supposed to listen twice as much as you talk, right? Isn't it? And then we come to the marketing plan. This is on page 28. Present your marketing plan. If there was one place you should spend your time on in advance, this is it. Particularly if you're going to do expires. What's the number one question an expired is going to ask you will probably be, what are you going to do to market my property different from what the last guy did? And if you say, well, I'm going to put it on the MLS, there'll be a for sale sign in the front yard. It's going to go on Zillow. I'm going to do open houses. And maybe the board tour if I have time. The board tour. The broker, no, they call it the board tour because agents are usually really bored when the board of realtors. The board of realtors.
He's bored.
And they can be boring. But anyhow, Now, if all I say is I'm going to put it on the MLS, I'm going to put it in the for sale sign, I'm going to do them in houses, I'm going to put it on the broker tour, there's nothing special here, right? You understand? There's nothing special. This is where you really want to spend the time. When I was Blossom Valley's easy, I go to Almaden. And Almaden, not easy. And I was competing against the husband and wife team at that time. Their names were Chuck and Janet Weller. I remember them, unfortunately. Chuck and Janet were the number one team in Almaden at that time. They were listing and selling more homes than anyone else at that time. They could prove it. You could drive around and just see it. They were discounters taking out full-page ads in the Almaden Times, pointing out that they were the number one team in Almaden and that they were only charging 4% at that time. Remax is where they were. Right? This was a lot harder than Blossom Valley when I was typically the only one they were talking to and they were listed for 6, right? Because now the owners are saying to me things like, well, we're going to list with Chuck and Janet. I mean, look, they're selling all the homes in the neighborhood. Right? They're selling all the homes in the neighborhood. You haven't sold hardly any homes in the neighborhood. We're going to go with them. Right? I mean, I would too. Right? I probably would too. So what I started saying was, let me ask you this. When you bought the home according to this 8 years ago. Isn't that right? Yeah. So let's talk about that. I assume this wasn't the only home you looked at. When you bought the home, I mean, you looked at other homes, not just this home. Yeah. Why did you buy this home instead of the other homes? What was it about this home that was different? I assume you narrowed it down to 2 or 3 or 4, something like that. And you picked this one. Why did you pick this one instead of the other ones? And they would tell me. Sometimes they looked irritated that I was doing this, right? They would say, well, we liked the backyard was better, the layout of the kitchen was whatever it was, right? And after I got that out of them, I would say, all right, great, thank you. The company that had listed the home, the company, when you bought it, do you remember who that was? And they would look at me like, I don't know, maybe Coldwell Banker. I think the sign was blue. Wasn't the sign blue, right? And I'd say, okay. So it was Coldwell Banker and the listing agent. Who was the listing agent? When you bought the home 8 years ago, who was the listing agent? And they'd go, I don't know, Linda maybe, I think was the name. Right, you understand there's a good chance the buyer's never met the listing agent. Right, there's a good chance. And then after, I'd say, okay, now explain to me this. What impact did Linda and Coldwell Banker have on your decision to buy this home? Explain that to me. How Linda got you to buy this home instead of the other homes. And they would say, well, she had nothing to do with it. I said, really? I mean, the home you didn't buy, the other one you said you almost bought but didn't buy, I want you to imagine that home exactly as it was with one difference. Linda's name is on the for sale sign. Do you buy it now? Of course not. We like this home better. And so, I swear this is what I do. I look around and I say, I'm going to tell you a secret. Most real estate agents aren't going to tell you this. Real estate agents don't sell houses. Houses sell houses. Right? You understand? You did not buy this home because of whose name was on the for sale sign or the color of it. Why do you think it's going to be different this time? Why is it going to be different? So that doesn't mean we don't perform a valuable service, but I'm going to get. By the way, I've obviously practiced this a few times, but this is what I say to people: is it your goal to get the highest price possible when you sell your house? Yes. Yes. How is that accomplished? And the answer is it's by exposing your property to the greatest number of potentially qualified buyers. If you're going to go to a store to buy a dress or a suit, there's something coming up, and you want a new dress or a new suit, and you find a dress or a suit that is exactly the right color, the right style, and the right fit, would you pay more to own that dress or a suit than you would pay for one that did not fit as well, wasn't the right color, and wasn't the right style? Would you pay more to own the one that fits best. And everybody would say, of course, and I would say, we see that's our responsibility, is to find the buyer for whom your home fits best.
Yeah.
That buyer will pay more. And by the way, buyers do, and this way I find Chuck and Janet, you got to give it to them, they're really good at personal promotion. They're really good at personal promotion. Right? But that's not the same thing as property promotion. Right? They don't do any of that. They're only trying to get another listing. I am going to market your property. Now, what I'm counting on, what I'm doubling down on, is that my marketing plan is better than theirs. And what I want to do is I want to focus the seller on not picking the agent based upon what they say about themselves. Not picking the agent based on how long they've been in the business or how many homes they've sold, because buyers do not care about the listing agent, right? It has no effect on a buyer buying your home or what price they're going to pay. You should pick your agent based upon what they're going to do to sell your home, not based upon what they say about themselves. Now, at this point, you better have a good marketing plan. Right? With examples that you can show them. By the way, I started off with a tablet computer by a company called Lightware, which was one of the first ones, Slate tablets. I carry with me, that by the way turns into a tablet, but I carry a Samsung Chromebook. I have, this is embarrassing, 3 mobile hotspots in my possession right now. Two from Verizon and 1 from T-Mobile because I get different reception. It would be on when I walk in to the appointment. The Android tablet, the Chromebook, I like because it boots up instant. It's just on, and the reason is I can hold it. Right? You understand? If you bring a laptop to show people stuff, where are you going to sit, and where are they going to be? Yeah, I know that, but let's say.
And they'll stand behind you.
Right. So the couple here, if I turn it so they can see it, I can't see it.
Yeah.
I could sit between them. Stand over their shoulder, sit to the side. It's easy for me to hold this tablet, right? I can turn it back and forth, and I have hyperlinks in my presentation to show them stuff. By the way, one of my hyperlinks is when I talk to them about the MLS. And by the way, those of you, when we get to the deeper dive, I'll show you my presentation. Right. First of all, I'll say what I do. I break the presentation. When I'm explaining to them what I'm going to do to sell their home, I break it into 3 parts. Part number 1 is called pre-marketing. Pre-marketing. What pre-marketing is, we want to get the property ready for sale. That means inspections, reports, disclosures. If things need to be fixed, we're going to fix it. And no, I'm not going to give them a long list right then. That's part of the package. I use a stager, somebody that has a degree in design, because that's not me. No, it's just not me. Right? It's just not me. Right? But I don't do this right then. This is part of the package. Right? So in pre-marketing, we're going to get the house fixed. We're going to get it cleaned. We're going to get it painted. We're going to get it staged. We're going to have professional photographs taken. We're going to have all the inspections and reports done. I'm going to explain to them why that's going to save them money. By having the inspections and reports, it means that we could get a non-contingent offer. I explain what that means. And the goal is to get everything ready. And then we begin the marketing phase. And then the marketing phase is when it goes onto the MLS. It's when it goes onto all the 500 different websites. We're going to send out a just listed to the neighborhood, because there's about 7% of the people say that they found their home because somebody in the neighborhood told them about it. I've sold homes because I sent out a just listed card, and somebody in the area had a coworker that was interested and said, "If you ever see a home on the market in your neighborhood, let me know. I like your neighborhood. I'd like to be there." That was Almaden, by the way. So what am I doing all this? All right. So then that's the marketing phase, and at that point I'd go through the marketing plan, and then there is the contract to close phase, right? What happens when we get offers and all that other sort of stuff. So we're going to present our marketing plan. By the way, my interactive PowerPoint presentation, I have animated everybody's logo. So one of the things I do is I point out to them is that I'm going to put your property in the MLS, and I would say, so who have you been talking? Alon Pinnell. I said, okay, great. Your listing will be on their website. Who else have you talked to? Coldwell Banker? Yeah, your listing will be on their website too. Keller Williams, it'll be on their website. Remax, it'll be on their website. Name someone else. But it's going to be on their website too. You like their website? Cool, because your listing is going to be on the website. All of them. And interactively, every logo of every major company zips through the screen. And that's called IDX, the Internet Data Exchange. By the way, that's true if you put it in the MLS.
Yes.
I've gotten listings because other agents didn't talk about it. They just didn't talk about it. And one agent was miffed because we had gone on several appointments where we were competing and I was having a winning streak, and he was angry because he'd called the owners and found out what the reason they had picked me were all things that just putting it in the MLS would do. Because then I showed him that if you put it in, that in addition to making sure, this is how I presented it, in addition to making sure that your listing is on all the major real estate agent websites, I'm going to make sure that it's included in the 7 largest MLSs in the state of California. And I actually had a map showing where those were. I said, your property is going to be distributed to all those offices and agents. Right. Now, you understand that's what happens when you put it in the MLS. However, I explained it better. Right? I just explained it better. All right, so you're going to want to have a good marketing plan. You're going to want to have examples. And then help them with the price. So sometimes when I've asked people, so on the phone, I ask them, do you have an idea what your home is likely to sell for? They say, no, we want you to tell us. When I'm there, we're sitting at the table, one of the first questions I ask them is, do you have an idea what your home is going to sell for? I've had people refuse to tell me on the phone, but then they told me then. A lot of times they still won't tell me. Right? Now, what I end up doing is when I'm there and looking at their house, I identify, let's say, 3 properties that are kind of sort of like theirs, but at different price points. And I will say, well, these are 3 properties that are kind of sort of like yours. And here's one, and it's listed for $1 million. And here's one that's sort of like yours that's at 1.1. And here's one that's sort of like yours. And I would say, which of these do you think is the closest match to yours? And I've never had anyone not point at one. All right, guess what they're doing when they point at one? They're telling me what price they want. Right? Because otherwise they kind of look the same. So what do we do if the price is higher than what we think it's likely to sell for? This is the audience participation part of the
Tell me what.
The CMA, right? The Country Music Awards.
Yeah. You asked them, what makes you think that your property so much higher than,
Yeah.
others?
Yeah. What makes you think your house is worth more than all the other ones in the neighborhood, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, give a reason.
No.
They should.
What?
They have a lot of reasons.
It doesn't.
All right, how about this? So first of all, I would, if they didn't talk, let's say we were getting to the end of the discussion, I would put pricing off to the end. And when I'm closing, which is, this is why I say to people at the end, so what did you think of the marketing plan and what I've presented? Does it seem like you'll be able to get where you want to go with this? And they'd say yes. Well, the only thing left for us to do is to discuss the price, right? That's not the only thing left. Now, I have to admit, somebody get the door. I have to admit, I have a dilemma. I have a dilemma, and maybe you could help me with it. But so this is the dilemma. I've been doing research as what's going on in the neighborhood, and so what I believe is that if I told you right now the right price, the price that you were thinking of, the price you said you wanted, since everything else seems to be going well, you would probably list your home with me, right? And I would walk out with a listing agreement, but I'm going to have to let you down later because the evidence that I've looked at may or may not demonstrate that price. But that's not my dilemma. That's not the dilemma. See, this is the dilemma, because my dilemma is I could either at this point choose to lie to you or I could level with you, right? And if I lie to you and I tell you that your home is worth that or more, then you're probably going to sign the listing and I'm going to go away with the listing and I'll have a sign and then later I'll have to beat you down. Or I could level with you and just tell you the truth about what's going in the market at this time and how that would affect the price of your house. But you see, then you might list your home with another agent who isn't that honest. So what do you want me to do? Do you want me to lie to you or do you want me to level with you? What do you want? All right, and people say we want you to level. Now, you understand I've already set up the other agents as being liars. Right. And there's a way to remove this. So, there are 3 strategies for selling your house. 3 strategies. This is not in your material. This is my stuff. 3 strategies. Number 1, we're having a sale. In the we're having a sale strategy, we're going to deliberately price your property below where we think it's going to end up. And we're going to do that in order to create traffic, movement, interest, awareness. We want the open houses to be like anthills, people crawling over each other. All right, that's what we want. I say this. She didn't show up today, but there's one agent, she would say, he says that like every time. You know, that's what we want. And if we do that, the having a sale approach, we're likely to get multiple offers. And they're more likely to be without contingencies. That's option number 1, the sale. Option number 2, the price is right. In option number 2, the price is right, we are going to sit down and go through this market analysis, look at all the comparables, look at everything that's been on the market and sold recently, and we're going to figure out what price is the right price for your house, and we list it for that price and we stick to it and don't budge. And we might sell it. And we might not. That could easily produce no offers. And then there is the needle in the haystack. That's the 3rd approach. And in the needle in the haystack, we deliberately list it above where we think it's going to sell, hoping that some crazed, demented individual wanders in and buys it anyhow. We call those, in the business, expired listings. That's what we call them. Which of these 3 approaches do you think would work best on your home? Do you know what they say most of the time? Number 2. Last time, the one with the East Palo Alto, I did this, he said, the second one. Price is right. And I said, perhaps I wasn't good at explaining myself. Let me do this again. There are 3 approaches. The first one is more likely to get you the most money. And they say, all right. You didn't want to hear it again. So if we do that, right, I don't let it go, right? You understand? If we do that, are we going to get offers on the property? The answer is yes. By the way, if somebody offers the list price, does the seller have to sell it for that? No. MLS, forget if you went to real estate school and that was the answer to a question. It's wrong in the reality. The MLS rules say that simply presenting a full price offer does not earn a commission. You have to consummate the transaction. So if you don't get any that you like, you don't have to accept it. But if we do that strategy, do we have to worry so much about whether or not we got the price perfect? No, right? And that requires that you know what's going on in your market. You need to know what point you would put it at where it would generate the interest. This is what I also tell people. Remember the conversation when you bought the house, explain why you bought this house. It wasn't just this house. There was 2 or 3 other ones. You bought this one compared to the 2 or 3 others. The reality is, out there in that market, there's 2 or 3 other homes that are directly competing with yours. And we're going to be compared to those maybe 3 other homes. Now, there's 2 kinds of homes in this competition. You understand? This is one of my conversations. You have to get out of the mindset that this is your home and what you're going to end up with is a commodity on the shelf competing with others. Your home is going to be like a box of cereal on the shelf competing with other boxes of cereal. What's that?
Is that the number 3?
No. It's not any number.
I'm just talking. So there's 3 other, do you understand? There's 2 or 3 other boxes of cereal, houses, that are competing directly with yours. And there's 2 kinds of properties that are in this competition. There are homes that cause other homes to sell. And then there are the homes that sell. Does everybody understand? So if we're at the top of that pack, then all the other listing agents are going to be saying, look at that one. Look at how much of a better deal this house is compared to that one. Right? In other words, they're going to use your house to sell their house. Or we could be the house that gets sold. Right? Which means that we don't have to beat them all. We just have to beat those 2 or 3, right? It's like the old line about the lions and chasing gazelles, and you don't have to be the fastest gazelle. You just have to be faster than one other one. Isn't that right? Right? You just have to be a little faster than that one. So I would take people, by the way, to go look at those other homes. Take the seller. Let's go look at it. You got $1.2 million and you want to live in 95118. What are your choices? You want it to be 4 bedrooms? Let's go see what that company. Does everybody understand? That's the reality. It's not as important in the market we're in right now what the sold property sold for. I'm telling you that the market has changed. It's not what the sold properties have sold for. It's what the active listings are listed for. That's driving the market right now. Right? We have a listing that on paper is underpriced. The problem is 2 homes have come on the market that are bigger and more remodeled and they're for less. So we're going to go talk to the seller. We have a problem. Right? Does everybody understand that? Now that requires that you know something about how to do a market analysis. This is one of the deep dives that we're going to go on where I'm going to actually go through. It's called The Art of the CMA. And what I cover are 5 different ways of pricing a property. 5 ways of pricing a property. 5. One of them is a CMA. One is a CMA. There's 4 other ways of 4 other things that I would look at. All right? You're going to have to come to that class in order to see that, though. You need to know, and by the way, you should use RPR. You should be using RPR as the Realtor's Property Resource. It makes nice-looking CMAs. In addition, you should learn how to do quick CMAs. You should learn how to use the statistics program in the MLS. If your client's an engineer and you don't have graphs and charts and statistics, you've got problems. Achieve that we're going to actually work on doing this. I actually have a video. I put it in my list that I sent out to the people that I'm coaching about called I think I have one of my Art of the CMA videos, but I'm going to do it as a class. We're going to go through the 5 ways of pricing a property. Right? What an investor would pay. You have to see it. So, isolate and overcome objections. We like you. We think you're great. However, we've made appointments with some other agents. So we're going to go talk to them too. All right. Now, I'll say to people, well, is that really the only thing that's going on? I mean, I asked you on a scale of 0 to 10. You said I was like a 9. By the way, if I ask somebody on a scale of 0 to 10, how effective was my presentation? What do you think of my marketing plan? What do you think of what we've been talking about? And they say, oh, we think you did a good job, 8, maybe 9. I always say, what would it take to make it a 10? What would that take? If they say, well, we think the price, I think we'd like to start a little bit on a higher price. And your 6.5% commission seems high. 6% commission, let's say. And then I would isolate. I'd say, well, is it just, let's just do one at a time, commission. They say, well, we think everything is great. Everything looks good. We're sure you're worth 6%, maybe even more. But, the commission 6% seems a little higher to us. Our neighbor said he sold it for less than that, as a commission. Then I would isolate that. What isolate means, first of all, I always cushion an objection. And what cushion means, if somebody says we think 6% is too much, I would say, I understand how you feel. I do, right? 6% of $1 million this is a lot of money. I understand how you feel. Most people in your situation feel the same way. Now, do you understand that's called the cushion? Because I didn't say, well, that's stupid. That's the kind of Philistine pig ignorance, I have to deal with on the. You understand? I'm not arguing with them. Right now, the defenses are down. Right? Then I isolate it. Is this it? Is this the only thing keeping us from working together? Is the 6%? Is that it? If I were to do it for 5, could we sign the papers tonight? Does everybody understand if we isolate it, right? Is this it? Then we can close if we can handle that. By the way, when they say, well, so-and-so said he'd do it for 4.5, right? This is what I say. Oh, I understand. I understand how you feel. That sounds like a bargain. We all want bargains, right? Right? We all want bargains. Of course, Did you ask him for that commission amount, or did he just bring it up? Did you have to work him into 4.5%, or did he just put it on a card and he mailed it to me? Oh, so there wasn't any real negotiation, right? Or if they say, well, we asked him if he could go lower, and he said he would go lower to 4.5, right? So you do understand that one reason you hire a real estate agent is to negotiate on your behalf. You understand that? Would you say that's an important role of a real estate agent? Isn't that one of the things you said when I asked you, what are you looking for in an agent? By the way, this is one of the questions. What are you looking for in an agent? What do you expect the agent to do? What do you want from your agent? Right? And when they talk about negotiation, I would say, so let's just be clear. You said that you got that other agent to lower his commission from 6 to 4.5. Sounds like you're a better negotiator than he is. Is that really what you want? An agent that you're a better negotiator than? If that guy won't fight for his money, how hard is he going to fight for yours? Guess what he's going to tell you when offers come in? Cut your price. Cut the price. Right? He's got one way of making a deal. Cut the price. That's his business model. Cut the price. Is that the age? I thought you said you wanted to get the highest price. I thought you wanted the highest price. Why would you go with somebody who price cutting is their business? Right? I tell people this, the three most expensive things, the three most expensive professional services that most people meet in their life. Number one, a cheap accountant. This can be a very expensive professional service. Number two, a cheap lawyer. Right? You know, this follows usually the cheap accountant once the IRS is after you. And number three is a cheap real estate agent. Those are the three most expensive professional services you could ever have. Now, I'll lower the commission, but not until after I've pushed. You understand? Because now they're not expecting me to meet 4.5. They're expecting me 5 they'll be happy with. Right? Does everybody understand? We don't want, because if we're matching low commissions, this is a race to the bottom. Right? There's always a cheaper agent. And what you have to explain to them is that you have to be able to sell the value of your services. I want to list it for more, so do I. I would love to. But again, if we use that pricing strategy, do you understand that the price is right is a dangerous strategy? Would you cut your commission? I already went through that. Right? That's can we try? We can always drop it off later if we don't get an offer. One of the standard things that is in the listing presentation, and in Century 21 we have a listing presentation, it's in the multiple listing service one as well, is a graph that shows where traffic is. And what it shows is when we list a house in the next few weeks, most of the people that are going to see the house are going to see the house. So if we price it high, so we can come down later. I always say to people, I understand how you feel. You know, a lot of people feel the same way. But the issue here, the challenge is that most of the people that are going to see your house are going to see it in the first few weeks. And if during that time period we're off the mark, we're above the market, then when most of the people are looking at the property, we're not competitive with the other properties. And then as soon as the herd has stopped, now we're going to lower our price and be competitive. When nobody's looking at it anymore. The longer your home is on the market, the less likely you are to get the highest price possible. If you were a buyer and you were looking at a home and it had been on the market 60 days, what would you be thinking about that property? Something is wrong. How about this? All the people that have looked at it in the first 2 months, they can't all be wrong. Right? That's what we're saying. They're all wrong. The 100 people that saw it, they're all wrong. Right? I have investors that only want to see homes that have been on the market more than 60 days. Do you know why? Because they know the sellers are weak at that point. They're soft. And they can come in with a low ball offer. There's a sweet spot for selling your home at the highest price. If we miss that, you're not going to get as much money as you want from the sale of your home. Right? Which is why pre-marketing, marketing, our goal is to sell it in the first 3 weeks. Right? And as we keep going, the market has changed. Right? One of these agents, she's like all upset because the house has been on the market too long. It's been there like 15, 16 days. What is the average days on market in that zip code? Right? I happen to know, but it's more than 30. I look at the other. Do you understand? We need to know what is going on right now. Things are moving slower. It's just the way it is. What else? Close for the appointment. Ask if they do not sign that night, the chances of you signing it have dropped dramatically. The idea that you'll go back and then they'll sign, nah. So what I'll say to people are things like, look it, folks, obviously, because you understand I gave them this big binder. I have all the forms filled out. right? I have marketing already. And I'll say, look, obviously I put a lot of work into this. I would love to represent you. Let me just ask you a question because, I just don't want to have to keep coming back and all that. Tell me, what's it going to take to get you to sign the listing agreement tonight? Tell me. I'm here. I'm ready. Don't you think I'm ready? I'd like to get going. Tell me. What will it take? What do you want? What will make you happy? Tell me. Again, they might say, well, the commission a little, right? If they say, well, we would love to do it, but we've made appointments with 2 other agents and they're going to be coming tomorrow, and so, we're going to keep it. This is what I say. Well, this is not fair to them. Not really. Right? Because obviously, we're going to probably be working together, and to have them come out and waste their time, right, isn't going to help them. But I have an idea. I normally don't do this, right? But because you've already made appointments, I'm willing, this time to do it. But I imagine that those other agents probably have databases of buyers and things like that. So when I list your home tonight, I will be your agent, and I will be the one representing you with them. So I'll contact them for you. And I'm going to give them information about your property right now during that pre-marketing phase so that they can market the property as an off-market listing to their existing client database. Agents love to be able to market off-market, to be able to promote off-market listings. This will make them happy that we're giving them that opportunity.
Oh my God, you are bad. You are so bad.
Right?
Oh.
I may be sadistic, but these are fun phone calls to make.
And the Oscar
Hi.
goes to.
Hi, Bill. This is Mike at Century 21. I know you have an appointment tomorrow for the property at. I just thought I'd let you know that I listed it tonight, and as a courtesy.
You do that? You called it?
Yes, that's what I said I was going to do. I don't want him showing up.
Yeah.
I don't want them showing up. By the way, you said Century 21 sells they're for sale signs that you can have made with your name on them that stick in the grass. I keep one in my trunk because when I sign the listing, I put it in the yard as I leave.
Right away.
As I leave.
Oh my
Right.
God.
Right. So it's like it keeps the other agents away.
Mike, you're a machine.
So wait, so what's the worst thing that another agent have said?
I can't say that loud. I'll tell you later. No, they're not happy. No, they would. You can imagine what they said.
I want to kill you, would say.
Well, I didn't have anybody say that.
I mean,
They did suggest some things that were anatomically impossible.
Will they get pissed off, really?
No. This is the way. I'll tell you something. If that last part worries you, you don't have the mindset to be a listing agent, right? If that makes you queasy, then just show buyers home, right? I'm saying if this is a competitive environment, I'm just if you don't think they will do something like that?
no.
You let one of the guys that I was competing against, you let one of them in first, there was a good chance they weren't keeping my appointment.
Yeah.
Right? I went through do I want to be last or first? I want to be first now. Because a lot of times if I was last, they sometimes teach that because then, you can close them. A lot of times I never got a chance because they'd already listed it with somebody else before my appointment. I want to be first because I'm not going to leave. They're going to have to tell me to leave. Right? What would it take to get you to, I've done all the work. I'm ready to go. I've spent a lot of time on this. I'd love to represent you. I know I'll do a great job for you. What will it take to get this all wrapped up tonight so we can move forward? Tell me. What's it going to take? If you were the seller, do you want a weak agent? Do you want somebody that's not strong, not willing to close? Who do you want representing you? Most people want somebody.
ABC.
All right. So, you close. Now, one of the things that I wanted to cover before we go on, this is just like a little bit of a bonus. I think I may have been logged out, so I'm going to log in. All right. Just give me a second. So, one of the things that, so now we have a listing. If you've been doing everything the way I've suggested it, you now have a listing. All you have to do now is sell it. If you're at Century 21, you might want to write this down. Put it in dash first. There's a marketing plan. It's on page 37 is a marketing plan, and then there's seller communication. That's what I'm going to cover in the next 5 minutes or so. I may go a couple minutes over if that's okay with you guys. But on the marketing plan, you should, if you're in Century 21, you put it in dash, D-A-S-H, first. That means before the MLS. We're talking about selling the house. If you put it into dash, dash is a back-end system at Century 21. It allows us to syndicate it to the 500 websites before the MLS does. What that means is in the comments, you can say, call official listing agent Mike at, and put in your phone number. You cannot do that in the MLS. They'll fine you. You can have a branded virtual tour, a tour that has your name and your picture and says, more information, call official listing agent Mike at. You can have the pictures can be you standing in front of the for sale sign in such a way that the people can see your name, phone number, and email address. The MLS will not allow you to do that. So if you do that in dash first, dash will syndicate it out to 500 websites before the MLS gets it, and it will have your personal contact information in the syndication. Some of the systems, Zillow, are sophisticated enough to prevent that. But most IDX sites, that means Keller Williams, Coldwell Banker, Intero, Lon Pennell, Remax, they're not sophisticated, and it'll syndicate with your name and phone number on their websites for people to call. How about that? Right? Not bad. And once you put it into dash, I actually have a listing here. This is a listing in Monterey. I'm selling the beach. Now, there's actually a house attached to it, but that's what the picture of the beach is what it looks like if you walk out front of the house. So this is on Bungalow Drive in Marina. Show more details. Unique property site. So one of the things that's in my marketing plan is that they're going to get a single property website, right? And the seller picked the pictures. She likes the beach, but most of we do what they want. But there are other pictures about it. There's a gallery, a video, a map, request a showing. This is all connected to me, right? See my name up there, a single property website, which is kind of, what people think they're going to be getting. Let me see if I can go back. No, go back here. A branded virtual tour automatically generated by Century 21. It's got my contact information on it. The non-branded tour is automatically generated by Century 21. That's something I can use on the MLS because the MLS doesn't want branded tours. And it creates a YouTube video of my branded tour, which can be accessed there. Cool. One of the other things that will save you time is, pardon me? I know, you have to go and look at it. I have the house someplace here. So one of the other things that Century 21 has is something called the Golden Ruler, and I've set it up for the property, and twice a month the system automatically sends my seller a report on what's happening on the internet with their property. So this is the most recent report. There were 906 detailed views. By the way, I've also sent her a link to the HTML version. It shows how many were on Realtor.com, Century 21 site, Zillow, Trulia, how many people have looked at the property on the internet. and it automatically updates and sends 2 reports a month, updating as people look at it. Right. So, by the way, when it started, let me see what it looks like. If we go here, back here, and we go to those of you that are, this is the golden ruler. This seller is a difficult seller. And what she told me was that Century 21 screwed up and didn't syndicate her listing. It was listed on Wednesday, and by the way, that line that you see going up is what happened on Thursday. It was put in the MLS right before midnight Wednesday night. But look at what happened on Thursday. Right, when she said, well, I don't think you actually got it on the internet. I'm like, first of all, I got a call the next morning. But I could show that, and then it leveled off, and then it went up, and it shows over time how many people have looked at the property. Now, you understand, if the property doesn't sell right away, the seller is most likely going to blame you for not marketing the property. Right? This person, by the way, the seller is not calling me anymore saying you're not marketing the property, because obviously 1,000 people have seen it just from that, and nobody's made an offer.
Oh.
So what conclusion would the seller arrive at? The price. It's not the marketing. It's not that people aren't looking at your beautiful house with the beach. They're looking at it, right? And so I've set this up so it's an automatic 13,200 people, it came up in their searches. Right? But no leads have been produced as a result of the marketing. By the way, the other thing that you need to do is, once you've put somebody in the system, and this is actually me, this is the Century 21 system, it's called ZAP. And once you put somebody in the system, let's say they were either I'll do this quickly. Let's say it's somebody who is thinking about selling their house. We have interactive tools. So the best way for me to say this is our system will search off-market properties. What that means is that we can search homes that are not in the MLS. And I've done this already. So, for example, 16995 Malaga is not on the MLS. It's an off, I'm sorry if I said it wrong. It's an off-market property. So let's say this owner is talking to me about selling their house. So I can go here. Notice it says selling price your home with our tools. So first of all, this is Century 21 system has every property in the country in the database, listed or not. Listed or not. So if this is a listing appointment, I put in the address, I find the property. Notice over there, selling price your home with our tools. I click on that, and it has Zillow's estimate right there. By the way, it also explains to them what's wrong with the Zillow's estimate. Should we pretend that the seller has never heard of Zillow? By the way, my 5 ways to price a house, number 1 is automated valuation models. I show them what Zillow says, what Redfin says, what Realtor.com says, what Trulia says, what CoreLogic says, what the RVM, the Realtor's Valuation Model, says. I have them all listed, and you can see sometimes there's $100,000 swing between what the different automated valuation models. I use Cloud CMA for my CMA, and Cloud CMA will actually show when the properties that were sold what Zillow said they were worth before they closed. And it'll calculate the dollar and percent that Zillow was off, and Zillow is off a lot. So should we pretend that they're never going to, that they don't know about Zillow and they're not going to go to, would I rather they look at Zillow's estimate on my website with my name and phone number, or do I want them to go to Zillow and look at ads from other realtors? Probably not. So here's your Century 21, that's the Zillow. Go deeper with our interactive pricing tool. When I click on that, what's going to, and by the way, I can do this for the client. I'm running out of time here. Where I can log in, I create a contact in my database. I log in as them. There's a little drop-down menu. I go and put their property in as a watched property. And it allows me to create, based upon criteria, I select mile, mile and a half mile, 3, 4 bedrooms, age. I can move the little sliders around. And when I'm done, it'll automatically every week send a market update to that seller of not just active, but pendings and closed transactions based on that criteria. So I don't have to remember that, oh, I've been talking to so-and-so about selling their house. The thing will automatically send them once a week what's going on in their neighborhood, not just active listings, but closed, recent sales, that sort of thing. By the way, if you go to the Century 21 webpage and you put in your address of your home, what'll come up, and it's not connected to me or to one of our agents, what'll come up is 4 agents who work the area, Century 21, that you could click on if you wanted to make an appointment to have somebody talk to your home. How many leads has your company generated for you that are either buyers or sellers? Does the company, if you don't work for Century 21 or one of the other companies, does the office you work for do anything to generate listing and buyer leads for you? Now, if I share this with anybody, that link has my name in it and it's branded to me and it just has my contact information. But if people in, this is a Morgan Hill property in Morgan Hill, were to go to the Century 21 website and go through it themselves, there's a good chance I'm going to get the lead anyhow. Because Century 21 matches people that have made requests for information with our agents. It's done through a system called Lead Router. You'll get a lead. Right? So if you share it, and by the way, in your email signature and in your email marketing, you ought to say, want to know what your home is worth, and put in your branded link so people could go and do an interactive. You see, what I didn't do is I have to add in the address. 16995. Let's see if we can find it from that. It wants more. This isn't my house, by the way. So, tools, so it found it. Get home value updates. Notice it's got my name and picture up here. I can do this from, so if I'm meeting with somebody who's thinking about selling their home, I put them into my database as a contact. Then as a contact, as them, I go in, I put in their address as what's called a watched property, and it automatically starts sending them this. They could do home value estimates. This is Zillow. Interactive pricing tool. And this is the one that allows, see the slider, I can do this for them, or they could do it themselves. And it starts to show other properties that have sold and what they sold for. Expert opinion, since this is my link, it only has me. However, if this were done through the Century 21 website, it would have 4 Century 21 agents in the area. And by the way, for those of you that are in our system, get reviews in your Zap site because they show up on the 4 agents. You also want to make certain that your client has this set up so that anytime an active listing, pending, anything that happens in the area, your client is notified automatically. I had a listing in Silver Creek. John calls me up And he says, "Hi, Mike. Mike, how's it going?" And I'm like, great. And he said, "So what's going on across the street?" I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, "Well, there's a for sale sign in the house across the street." And I said, John, I was going to call you today about that, but I'm on the other line right now with a client. As soon as I'm off, I'll get the site." Oh, and then I, found out about the listing, and I called it. Then a few weeks later, he calls me, and he said, "So, what happened?" "What do you mean?" "The sign's gone." My mother's on the other line, John. You always call me at this time. I'll be back, So then I learned it would make a lot more sense for me to set this up automatically, right? So that every time there's a listing in the neighborhood, my system sends the listing to the seller. Every time a listing turns from sold to pending or canceled or leaves the market, it sends an email to the seller. The sellers think I'm doing this every day myself. That's what they think, right? But the system, how can you have 15? You understand, when you get up to 5 or 10 listings, right, you can't be, every morning I'm going to go and log into the MLS and I'm going to do a search around my listing and see if anything has happened, and if it has, then I'm going to, right, you can't do that, right, it just doesn't work very well. All right, was that enough? Oh, no. All right, thank you very much.